We've reached the month of December. There's only a few weeks left until the end of 2024. So today I'm going to rank all five November 2024 releases that I saw, from the worst to the best. Last place, number five, is Red One. I was very excited to see this movie, and I was very, very disappointed by it because this movie has a major, major identity crisis. It does not know what it wants to be. It's trying to be a safe action film while also tying itself to Christmas. And unfortunately, it just keeps harkening back to much better Christmas movies. The way it ties in other mythical figures such as the Headless Horseman and the Krampus feels a bit reminiscent of DreamWorks' Rise of the Guardians. The elves who provide Santa with tech, a la Q from James Bond, has already been done in Prep and Landing and the Santa Claus movies. The film's plot template is just the first Men in Black with the light Christmas template over it. Dwayne Johnson is the equivalent to Tommy Lee Jones, the seasoned veteran who wants to retire from the business of funding supernatural creatures. And Chris Evans is the new recruit who's brought in for his special skills, and they need to find an object the villain is going to use to take over. And yeah, you've seen this before. It's just your standard generic buddy action comedy, except unlike Men in Black, where Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith work well off each other, that with Chris Evans and The Rock. None of the jokes work, and the ones that bomb the hardest are, of course, the ones that go on for way too long. It does have some interesting lore and world building, but this is a Christmas film that you can skip. That being said, that was the only bad movie that I saw this month. All these other movies I gave positive reviews. Number four, Wicked. Certain movie musical adaptations where it just looks like a bigger budget version of the musical, this actually looks really cinematic. Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo have a good dynamic with each other, and the actor who plays Fiyero really hams it up in the best way. Now, while Ariana Grande does give a good performance, it just felt like she was copying Kristen Chenoweth for the Broadway version. The way she talks, her tone of voice, all feel very reminiscent of Chenoweth instead of making the character and songs her own. And while Jeff Goldblum gives a good performance as the wizard, he was clearly only cast based on his namesake rather than his ability to sing. His performance as the wizard just feels like every other character he plays. The movie conveys its anti-prejudice message in a way that doesn't feel heavy-handed or preachy, and it doesn't try to make the witch a sympathetic villain. This is part one of two, and even if I didn't know that, I'd still be satisfied with where this film ends. It doesn't feel abrupt, it feels earned. This movie is likely going to be popular, but let's say for whatever reason it doesn't make enough money for the studio to justify making part two, I'm still fine with that, because it doesn't feel like there's anything that needs to be continued. Whether you're a fan of the musical or not, Wicked soars high. Number three, Spellbound. Disney really needs to look at this film and take notes, because with them giving us practically nothing but sequels and remakes, this is a film in the animation sphere that stands out. And what else can you expect from John Lasseter, the director of Shrek, and songwriter Alan Menken? This is an imaginative, creative, and inspired fairy tale that feels like a throwback to the Disney Renaissance era, while also not feeling derivative. The songs by Alan Menken are some of the best songs I've heard in an animated film in years. And I like how this breaks the typical animated fairy tale formula. The main character, instead of having dead parents, instead has parents who've been cursed to be monsters, and the quest is to turn them back. The whole cast is great, but especially Nathan Lane and John Lithgow as comic relief characters. The film doesn't have a villain, but it doesn't really need one. Conflict is more between the main character trying to get her parents to put aside their differences. The theme message and quest did remind me a bit of Pixar's Brave and Onward, but this film did it much better than either of those films. Spellbound is a refreshing animated film, and I hope gets some love for both its story and songs at the 2025 Oscars. Number two, Moana 2. So, for those who don't know, this originally started out as a series for Disney Plus, but after Wish underperformed, Disney decided to rework this as a film. Initially, this worried me. I worried the plot would feel episodic, similar to the Star Wars The Clone Wars movie, which was just the first four episodes of the show edited together. And with Clone Wars, you could tell where the episodes ended and the next one began. However, that is not the case with this film. The plot flowed pretty naturally. I really enjoyed how this film expands the mythology. Moana and her little sister were a great dynamic, reminding me of Nani and Lilo from Lilo and Stitch. And we finally, after 11 years, have a great Disney villain, and on top of that, a great villain song. I don't consider Shiny from the first Moana to be a villain song per se, because Tamatoa wasn't an overarching threat. He was in the movie for like 5 minutes, and that was it. The villain in this movie is an overarching threat, and he has a great villain song that feels like a mixture of Hercules, I Won't Say I'm in Love, and Yzma's deleted villain song from Emperor's New Groove, back when it was called Kingdom of the Sun. He's a pretty scary, threatening villain. She reminds me of the villain from DreamWorks movie Sinbad. Now, Lin-Manuel Miranda didn't do the songs this time around, and you can kind of tell. None of the songs are awful, but they're not as good as the songs from the first film. They're still pretty catchy, but they do feel like a cheaper version of Lin-Manuel Miranda's work. Not there weren't any songs where I thought, ugh, this is such a bad song, can we please move on? I think they were pretty good. And I think this movie instead of the show was a great decision, because the scale of this movie is huge. There's a scene with a whale that filled up the whole screen. There's monsters in this movie that feel very cinematic, and the scale is not something that would be as effective if this were just a streaming series. Now, on a plot level, I didn't think it was as strong as the first film. Moana didn't really have that interesting a character arc. The side characters in the show are all pretty forgettable, and the humor in the movie isn't as clever. The jokes in this movie are either repeats of jokes from the first film, or they're jokes that simply don't make sense. The boat stack joke is repeated a few times. The joke about how Moana is such a princess is repeated. Chicken screaming is repeated. There's a joke about butt dialing from Maui, which he says will make more sense in 2,000 years, which doesn't make sense. Like, does Maui have omniscience? The joke about tweeting from the first movie was mildly amusing, but yeah, it doesn't make sense to have modern references in this movie. So while it isn't as strong as the first film, it's still pretty solid and worth returning to the world of Moana. This movie I saw in November 2024 is the best Christmas pageant ever. Now, I grew up loving this book. I read it to us in third grade. I loved it. It's been a long time since I've seen a Christmas movie that was actually religious. Now, there's wrong with secular Christmas movies. A lot of my favorites fall into that category. But it's nice to have a movie that takes you from Santa and focuses on the religious reason for Christmas. And what a delight this movie is. It's very reminiscent of the film A Christmas Story with the way it's structured, with the main character as an adult narrating the film and the little cutaway gags. The film is very sweet and heartwarming and pretty powerful moments. The whole cast is delight, and they don't miss a beat with the comedic timing and the powerful dramatic moments. Religious films tend to have been above the target audience of Christians because they are stereotypically heavy-handed and can be overacted. I'm LDS, and though we have made a fair share of some pretty entertaining films, we've also made some that are a bit hokey. Regardless of your Christian denomination, you can enjoy this movie. This is going to be a Christmas classic for decades to come. If you celebrate Christmas, it's a must see.